Do you suffer from painful, heavy periods, PMS, mood swings, or migraines? Are you tired of being told they are just normal parts of life? Or are you afraid your child's going to suffer these symptoms too? At Vividus, the full of life company, we take the pain, misery, and confusion out of those menstrual cycles and replace them with tools of empowerment and time management so you can be Vividus. Visit embracingflowpodcast.com for more information on transforming your cycles from ow to wow. Information shared on the Embracing Flow podcast is for educational purposes only. It does not constitute medical advice.
Ever felt frustrated being told PMS, heavy bleeding, and cramping are just normal parts of life? You're not alone. I loathed my monthly cycle for decades. That all changed when I earned 3 health coaching certifications discovering something incredible. Your period is vital. It is an outward sign of your inner health, and it holds the key to unlocking your full potential. I've been there battling heavy, painful periods, and I turn them into cycles with minimal PMS and cramping. Today, I'm on a mission to share that information with you. Pour a cup of your favorite drink, get comfy, and grab your headphones as we embark on a candid and empowering journey of self-discovery. Together, we'll demystify menstrual cycles, explore cyclical living, delve into natural birth control, and guide parents through those crucial period talks with tweens and teens. It's time to break the taboo around menstruation and embrace the wisdom it holds. I'm your host, Heather Almendinger, and this is the Embracing Flow podcast.
Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Embracing Flow. I'd like to introduce our guest today, an expert at Embracing Flow, Katherine Cunningham. Welcome, Katherine. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Heather. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I am so happy that you are here. And listeners, here's why. Katherine is a menstrual educator for over 20 plus years. She is a natural fertility educator in the last 15 years. And her deepest qualification is that for most of the last 10 years, she could be ecstatically menstruating, deeply listening to her body, and our earth showed her how. I love that. You are so in tune with your cycle. How did you kind of get into that? But before we go there, did it start this way? We all started out the
No.
same way.
I think we all start.
How did
Yeah.
it start? And then how did you get into being the different titles that you have and into this space?
Yeah. Thank you so much for asking. My first blood is kind of murky. I remember the time, or the age I was, like 13, 14. And I remember witnessing the vivid memory of witnessing another girl's bleed through on her underwear and her skirt, and the incredible shame I felt for her. And but also remembering how much I had pain, and how much I hated it, how much the cycle is something as a collective we all hated it. It was this horrible thing. We all tried to hide it. It was just full of shame. And 13, 14, 15, and you just wanted it to, and yet you're so terrified not to have it, because I was, sexually active at 13. So you're in that love hate. Well, no one loved it, but you were in terror of not seeing it. And so as well, because I know near enough information about fertility and all those sorts of things at that age. And I remember it just being a plague and something that we all kind of, back in the day, in my late teens, I think I would find ways to just veg out on the couch and make it go away. Basically just tried to dodge it. And then I remember someone asking me why I had a problem with being a woman. I think it was that very first question I got asked. And I went, what do you mean? She's, well, that's what your menstrual cycle is about. It's about that, that state of being woman. And I don't necessarily fully agree with this consciousness now, but back in, gosh, we're talking 30 years ago now. And I turned and faced that, and I started to listen. And then, as it turned out, I had my daughter at home. I had a home birth at 21, which was pretty incredible. And that just as engaged, pregnant, married, Baba, and make us in work. But the choice to have a home birth was just not that anyone else had around me. I just was an instant like, no, when they asked, where are you having this baby? And I'm going to have this baby at home. I go, well, I don't know if you can do that. I'm like, well, I am. So it's going to happen. But then, yeah, and that was very powerful and very beautiful. I think in time, though, it wasn't until I really I met the keeper, the menstrual cup. I was about 23, 24. And the menstrual cup at that stage, so we are talking, 30 years ago. Yeah. So 30 years ago, menstrual landscape was a very different place. Yeah. Like I would Google, we didn't have Google. I would do a search in the library. It wasn't it?
No, that didn't happen to like 90s, 2000s. Yeah, there was no Google.
Yeah. Well, what I did do was I look in the library. So I looked for books. There was two, I guess it was The Wise Wound. There was Her Blood is Gold by Lara Owen. There was very, very few books, back 30 years ago. And even in this big state library in the city, there was just few people had this conversation. And the blood itself, was my greatest teacher, like learning to see the blood, learning to be in relationship with the blood, the scent, I would pour my cup out onto a plate and I would swish it right round to the edges to let all that. It's because it's mucus. It's not vein blood, it's mucus, and it's got all sorts of things. And when you let it flatten out over a plate, all that the water all evaporates. You end up with quite a beautiful gum. And over the years, I've used that in ritual. I've used it in art. I've worked with that gum, and because it's such an amazing substance, and the substance itself. And I guess that's when I say the earth showed me. It was my body and my relationship to the earth that kept taking me places, taking me into my body, into my psyche, into what was possible. And the less I looked outside of myself for any kind of reflection and support in that conversation, and the more I just kept listening deeper and deeper, each cycle itself, the more my body would show me how. And to me, that and then I guess in 1999, I had my first circle with a group of witches. And I stood up, I said, do you want to know where I go? And they're like, yes. So I shared, it was my very first class in 1999 where I shared where I went once a cycle and what I learned. And I came to my core questions was like, what is why do we menstruate? What is the purpose of it? What's the point? I think I'm in a chronic learner. I'm like always learning, always trying to reach and understand and learn one. So I studied a lot of Jung but also the mythopoetic state, that notion of the mythic consciousness. And there's that incredible, I guess, the Grail as a myth, the Holy Grail is a myth. But one of the versions of it that I found that touched the deepest was the one when all he was asked to do was to find the Grail and to ask the question, like, who does the cup serve? What does the cup serve? And it's a cup full of blood. Like, what does it serve? What does menstrual experience serve? And the deeper I listened, the more I went into it, the more I recognized this is a room where I has direct access to Earth through this incredible natural system. And it's designed so that we can listen deeply to her sound and be in relationship with Earth in a way that we are affirmed in our place with Earth. And the more I study now, when you look at because there's some incredible Indigenous scholars here in Australia, speaking to the custodianship, the relationship of humanity with Earth, and how, we've had an incredible continent here of huge amount of humans being in relationship with this Earth for tens of thousands of years without empire, without conflict. When you see their map of language and the map of the sub-bioregions, they're almost the same map because their language actually came from Earth, of Earth, And that to me that speaks of our capacity as human beings to be in that level of related state. But we can't do that if we're participating with a patriarchal culture that wants us to make it all go away. Yeah. So what I learned was this powerful edge, right, of between your deep relationship with your own body and a trust of our own body, um, and earth, and then this outer culture, this overculture that wants us to, be subservient, be consumers, be citizens, be participate in a lot of narrative and manufactured separation, manufactured separation from ourselves, from each other, and from ours. And to me, that has been my quest. Has been like, how do we? Yeah, I don't. Sorry, I've just kept going. Yeah.
No,
But that's how I got here. And so I've just learned lots and lots of ways to share the love and the passion. And yeah. And I'm now, my last blood was 2020 in November. I menopaused. And so those last 10 years of cycle, that state of ecstatic menstruation to me, which, it's still kind of there, like in a way it's not. The menopause is a very different stage, and I'm only 4 years in, so I'm still learning and just comprehending. But ecstatic menstruation to me is where we slip off the frontal cortex, we slip off the executive function, we slip into that trance state. We let our bodies lead us and feel into it, and then it just starts cascading up and down the spine, and you could be riding that for hours. Like, it can be an incredible state. And I know it's incredibly foreign to comprehend. It's a really, really strange notion. It's like ecstatic birth, right? The idea. And to me, that's the practice, right? Ecstatic menstruation leads to ecstatic birth. And to me, that's the design. That's actually how the system's designed. We're designed for this level of relationship. We're designed for this level of understanding. But there's a fuck ton of noise. Sorry, I don't know about that swearing. Sorry. There's a lot of noise that would tell us different, that would demand us be different than that. Yeah.
Yeah, it does make sense. Once I'm not at the level that you are with it, but I know that, I mean, we are filled, our veins are filled with blood,
Mm.
and our cycle is connected to every bodily system.
Mm.
So it's not just reproduction. That's for us to continue our species. It is there for our health. It is there for our well-being. I call it our superpower, because
Yeah.
when you understand the power of your cycle and live in harmony with that cycle, one, you can have that relationship that you had that, but you can also build your day and
Oh,
your
totally.
weeks and your month and your year in flow with your
Mm.
cycle, that we are not men. We are not little men. We are not made to be men. We are not linear creatures. We are
No.
cyclical. And
Mm.
when we embrace that, we've been taught that we are to be linear because, well, that's just how you're
Yeah.
supposed to live. When we embrace our cyclical living and our cyclical beings, that's when we're going to those that have embraced it are making change.
Yeah.
And
And
they're the ones that are
they've
going to continue to make that change.
Yeah. And I think once we recognize that, when we look at how deeply woven our emotional nature, our mental nature, and our physical nature and spiritual being are together, it's a whole package of humanity, in a human being, and our emotional and mental regulation states in those different phases, whether it's premenstrual, menstrual, ovulation, all those phases are really different parts of your being that once you've built relationship with, once you recognize the transitions between, you recognize, okay, so powerful ovulation state, that's your closing deals. Like I can make miracles happen when I'm ovulating. Like because human beings just, melt in my hand. Yeah, I'm with humanity in such a beautiful way. Like ovulated state is a very out there kind of place. With that deep blood state, that's when you take some of your most gnarliest, hardcore questions of your time and go, what do I really know? Like, what can I really understand in the stillness of my being, in the core of this quiet place of the blood? What can I learn? Yeah. And it's when we give ourselves permissions. And if I made my body of work called the Writing a Menstrual Cycle, which is about learning those 4 phases, there's 4 guided visualizations. And that deep blood meditation is about learning how to create and nurture your underworld, your deep sanctuary within that has your wisdom, keepers. It has your deep eternal fire. It has your psyche that you develop that in the landscape, because that's yours to develop. Yeah. You can hand that over to other culture and they can develop it for you, and they can be, Mattel approved. Or you can choose to create your own inner landscape and actively participate with the nurturance that you can access in each phase. Yeah. And then each phase can become, that pre-ov phase. I love the pre-ov phase. And most of our culture loves pre-ov, right? Because it's the most masculine of our 4 phases, but it's such a great time for, taking what we learn from and building that next chapter, that next thing, like what's coming with this egg. What do I want to harness? This force of life that could have created a life. That's what ovulation is. You've got a little tiny baby cell that's coming forward that could be anything. This is your life. What do you want to make with it? Because it's your power that sits there in that egg. And if we don't want to have babies, we've got enough, we don't want any, whatever, it's like, well, what do you want to do with this power then? Like, choose, make a choice. And that go to his lesson has you put it on you've got this mirror to the next thing. What do you want to manifest? What do you want to make real? What do you want to call in and support yourself to make honest and real of your life? Because this is the power that every one of us has in our belly, in our beings. But yeah. And then, mother line and ovulation, we have access to all, like when we look at our ovaries in our bodies, we're in our grandmother. Like that, our essence, like our connection all the way back genetically to grandma, that mother line, that red thread, like every single one of us has our little piece of that. And the more you heal of your red thread, the more you own of your red thread, the less you hand on the trauma. Yeah. The less, broken bits get handed down. Yeah, you end up with more opportunity to pass on to any, further generations a clarity and understanding that you've come to because you've done the work. Yeah. And then that premenstrual meditation and that phase, to me, the premenstrual phase, I think, is incredibly powerful. And it's an incredible untapped power. And that meditation, for me, it's like you use it as many times as you need during the premenstrual phase, because you've got an opportunity in the premenstrual phase to heal what's next to heal. Let it bubble to the surface. It's a very powerful healing time. So you could turn, face, and process whatever's next. Yeah, it's like when you're unwell, all of the other little ailments go away that you normally live with, and then when you're getting better, all those little things come back. It's like, to me, we've all got something that's next to be healed. Like it bubbles up to the surface, and again, if we create space and a practice of that, then we get stronger and stronger in our psyche. But for me, I called her my banshee. Yeah. So whenever my banshee arrived in my premenstrual phase, I would like, okay, I'm listening, because she's a force of nature. And if she arrived, it's because I wasn't willing to listen to something. Yeah. And she had the kahunas, and this part of me would force itself forward and go, if this level of irritation and fury would arrive fully, it's like, okay, what do you got to say? Because obviously I'm not listening. So I made friends with her, and I got a body to it called Bosom Buddies with Your Banshee, which is, to me, Banshee. When we befriend that force, rather than demonize. Yeah. And it's a difference, right? There's a
Oh, yeah.
difference. You either make
There's a
that,
big difference.
there's a big difference. You either make that force your friend or you make it the fury that you destroy your world with. Yeah. And to me, when I speak to the scale of menstrual experience, tyranny to champion, when I speak to tyranny, that's what I mean. Yeah. So humans who cycle, who use that cycle as justification to decimate humans, there are other people in their world, right? And just give themselves permission to do that. Yeah. Because it's, yeah, I'm bleeding. I don't care. I feel like there's this whole, and it's part of the pity party. It's part of the, where we all just, commiserate the fact that we menstruate. It's like, hold on a second, that whole little package you got going there, which is what you got left from the patriarchy. Right? If you fully swallow their song and dance routine and you fully swallow that's who you are and that's what you do, then I get it. I understand where it came from. I get what it is and what it's for, right? And it's another layers and levels and ways to demean and make, women's folk and bleeding folk bad and wrong, right? Because, who the fuck understands what happens? So who understands what happens when, what is the phrase? Don't trust nothing that bleeds through days and don't die.
Yep. Don't trust something that bleeds for 5 days and doesn't die. Yeah, I've heard it all, and it is extremely demeaning. It's one of the things that when I talk to different individuals, you brought in about that red thread to grandmothers and our heritage. When I talk to different individuals, I found a beautiful picture, and it has an older woman. It's a circular picture. It has an older woman who's embracing a young pregnant woman. And I said, this picture, I found it and it means a lot to me, and I want to share with you why. And it's because, and I before I go into detail, I ask how many, especially in the audiences that I've recently been speaking to, I ask how many are grandmothers, or how many are mothers to daughters? And then several raised their hand. I said, okay, how many of you have daughters who had children? And more raised their hand. I was like, okay, what I would like for you grandmothers to understand is when you were pregnant with your daughter around 16 to 20 weeks gestation, your daughter had all of her eggs. They had all developed in her ovary, not developed, but they were all there in her ovaries.
Yeah.
So when you were pregnant with your daughter, you were pregnant also with your grandchildren.
Yeah.
And I pause and I let that sink in, and I look at the faces of the beautiful, beautiful ladies, and even the men. I've explained this to mixed audiences, and I see the look of one, shock, two, of I never thought of it that way, but yeah, okay, I can see this. Wow, this is really powerful. And then I let them know that what we do now can affect up to 7 generations. So how you fed your body, how you related to your body, how you thought about your body, everything is can be passed through 7 generations. If you're having that trauma now in your body and you're pregnant, you're passing that trauma on to your child. If you can come to terms with these traumas, then you can break that cord. You have bad food habits. Guess what? You can break that and you can change up to 7 generations. That's in your power. And people just look at me like, okay, I understand what she's saying, but I didn't know it was that powerful. It's like, yes, it is that powerful. We are that powerful if we just know.
Yeah, if we knew. And yet there's some pretty amazing science. Epigenetics is arriving. There's some great science. It's showing, okay, so this is what, third generation Auschwitz, humans we can see it. Yeah. This is what starvation looks like 4 generations ago in the body. Yeah, in this body now. And so this is what you know, and when science comes along and kind of backs us up, it's great. And it's like when we finally realize that menstrual mucus is full of stem cells. And it's like, of course it is. It is the greatest nest your body can build. It is to hold the fertilized egg. It is the very best gold a human body can build. It's never been a waste. It's always been a very powerful part of the human experience and what we're capable of building. Yeah. So to me, when, you know, that whole mindset of making the blood just go away, just throw it away. And I remember vividly, researched what they do with the bins, you know, sanitary protection bins in public toilets in this country. It's all collected, put in 44-gallon drums and buried. Like, it's incredibly insane, the damage that consciousness whole is, right? It's just considering, you know, the difference between participating in a disposable industry that just throws away and makes it toxic and bad, or reusable blood that you collect and then feed to your earth, feed to your plants. Like, the fundamentally different experience of your body, of earth in relation, all of the things there, those two really different things. And to me, all you've done is on the inside, you've gone, I choose to call this sacred. I choose to value this experience and value this blood. I'm not going to call it something I have to be scared of and need protection from and throw away as quickly as possible and make it disappear. I'm going to recognize that this valuable, beautiful part of me can return to earth and feed. And it can be my gift back to earth. Like, she gives me everything. Earth gives me everything, the air, the food, the water, everything. But to return that blood to earth, to make that blood a gift, to consciously, you know, even to have a little chant, to have a little ceremony that connects you back in and is part of the way you are in relationship and part of that related state that you've created. And again, how sacredly you treat your menstrual cycles, how sacredly you treat your cycle, how sacredly you treat yourself. Yeah. And this is temple. And so all of those layers, again, are deeper and deeper. These are all our choices to make, our possibility. Yeah. These are, and that, I think that's I guess for me, that's the thing I've always come up against whenever I've talked to anyone who's ever been in QE of me about cycle. And it's like, I mean, some people don't ask. They don't want to know. They don't want to, and I get it. And I feel some people who like, don't want to know this conversation. I can't have this. It's like, it's too much of an earth-shattering thing. And I found for a very, very long time, I had a body of work called Starfire that came from that very first class, and this beautiful transformative class, 16 hours education. And I'm finally writing a book that went with it. But very, very few people who are on chemical menstrual cycle suppression, like any kind of fertility contraception, they couldn't even hear me. They could never, like, I was just impossible to perceive. Like, so very, very few ever arrived into my circle who were actually on chemical alterations of their cycle. So that was a very interesting notion to witness over the decades. It's like, and because there's more and more now questioning whether or not they should, you know, medicate it out of existence and make a difference in that conversation. And I guess definitely why I learned natural fertility education early on, because assisting someone out of the medical regime of that fertility suppression into, you know, this is, you know, the World Health Organization recognizes natural fertility education, you know, that to be 96 to 98% effective when used effectively. When used correctly, it's just as effective. It's, you know, I mean, and that truth, that reality, yeah, it's studied, it's real, it's honest, it's good work. The fact that when you look at it, the mucus observation method came from the Catholic Church. It was them actually taking responsibility for the fact that the rhythm method didn't work. The calendar method didn't work. Nope. And they were taking responsibility for that, and they funded it. And you can think of it No one else would have funded that study. No one else, no one else in the world would have studied, would have done the work necessary for that body. I'm so grateful. I mean, I'm strangely to the Catholic Church for that body of work, because it's a really powerful thing to have, and for us as humans to recognize the incredible power of the cervix and what all of those mucuses do, and that level of self-knowledge, when we have it, it's deeply freeing,
Yep.
so empowering. And when two people who have a fertile conversation really own that conversation together and really own and realize, okay, so this is what the combination of our fertility will result in. So how about we learn exactly how to be with that, just how to choose to have babies or choose not to have babies. But when they learn together, I mean, I definitely love that moment of teaching couples together. So this is what your combined fertile action can be if you when you own it for real. But again, choice. Yeah, choosing to learn, choosing to understand, choosing to own, not abdicating, not throwing away, not making someone else's responsible for it. Yeah, you have to be deeply 100% responsible for it. So able to respond to your life. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. I have a cup and I've
Mm.
taken the blood and I've mixed it with water and I've given it to my plants and
Mm.
they I usually kill plants. If I could keep a plant for a year, I was extremely happy. I have plants in my house right now that I've had for almost 8 years, and they're thriving. They're not just little
Yeah.
tiny plants. I've repotted them several times. They're very, very happy, healthy plants. They're huge. I'm not quite sure what
Yeah.
I'm gonna do with them because 'cause they're getting too big for my house. But part of that is, like you said, giving back to Mother Earth, which she
Mm.
gave to us.
Mm.
And I give them my menstrual blood, and they love it. They do very well with it. And also,
Mm.
as you were saying, with um having your partners, ha- I do fertility education, and the
Mm.
third session I do is I ask, hey, would your partner is welcome to join all of these classes.
Mm.
However, I really highly encourage your partner to join us on this third session because it is the family planning piece. And we
Mm.
go through all of the stuff that we learned before. So that way he understands, um, no, thank you. He understands how our bodies work. He understands why, if we say, you know what, right now, yes, I would love to spend time with you. However, we either need a barrier up if we
Mhm.
choose not to have children, or we
Mhm.
need to find another way to connect with each other in a very
Mm.
intimate way. And
Yeah.
being able to have that conversation, a
Oh.
lot of couples aren't able to have that conversation. But I am finding that the more that there's information out there about some of the history of birth control,
Mm.
some of the negativity about this chemical suppression, and how individuals are feeling. They didn't feel
Mm.
this before they started the medication,
Mm.
but now they're
Yep.
starting to feel it and they're like, I really don't like it. I don't like who I
Mm.
am. I don't like the weight gain. I don't
Mm.
like this. I don't like that. What other options do I have?
Yeah.
And I share with them, this is what I've done. This is what my journey, and this is where I'm
Mm.
at. And this is why I love using fertility awareness
Mm.
for taking care of my body. And
Mm.
some ask more information. Some are like, I want nothing to do with it. It's too complicated. And I'm like,
Mm.
It really isn't." I had somebody
No.
ask me today, how long does it take? I said, 1 to 2 minutes a day, maybe.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing is looking at cervical mucus when they go to the
Yeah.
bathroom on a regular
Oh
basis.
yeah.
And she's like, really, that's it? I've said,
Yeah.
and I get that, really, that's it? I'm like, once you
Yeah.
understand what that cervical mucus shares,
Mm.
you know where you're at in your cycle. Your
Mm.
cycle, your period, your whole body is telling you what's going on inside.
All the time.
You just have to listen.
Yeah.
And
And trust.
yes, trust,
Trust.
because you've got to learn that communication and trust that
Mm.
the information that you're getting is
Mm.
accurate. And it does take a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah.
But if in
Because
doubt,
you, especially if you spent, if you've spent 30 years ignoring, yeah,
mhm,
20 years just, pushing it away, not listening, not listening, not listening, I'm not listening, I'm not listening, I'm not listening. Like if you spent 20 years doing that, then it's gonna take a minute. Like you're gonna
yeah,
have to, you're gonna have to build some trust again. Yeah. I mean, with because when
mhm,
you're tiny, you're a child. I don't know if you watch children, like they're in their bodies. They
mhm.
they have no reason
Oh
not
yeah,
to trust they can make that leap. Well, they do all those things and they're in it. And it's like something happens in that pubescent time that where we learn something about an overculture that starts to really take over, or something gets in between our trust and our relationship that we have with our bodies and says, no, 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 over here. You should be listening to this over here. This noise, I'm the noise, I'm the noise. You go, no, no, you're not. You've never been a noise. You've always been a noise. You're not a signal. Like you are nothing I need to hear. And yeah, except for, compliance and for, that. I remember Brené Brown saying the antithesis of belonging isn't, aloneness, it's fitting in. Like if we do learn all the things to fit in and to be all the things that everyone else thinks we should be, that fitting in, which is what compliance and agriculture is for, right? It's for sustaining status quos and power over. Whereas, take it, own it. This power within is yours. It's always been. And I've got a couple of core questions I've asked all the way through. And one is, do we honestly believe it's designed to be painful? Like, to me, it's like, do we honestly believe this is designed to be painful? Because I do not. There's so many humans I've met over the journey who know there's no pain. And if there's an intensity, they meet the intensity and it becomes ecstatic. Yeah. But it's often that intensity is about communication. It's about pay attention here, come down, be in, be in. And that to me is so key because that it's meant to be painful narrative is why it takes 8 years to get an endometriosis prognosis. Like you are meant to be in menstrual pain is why we don't pay attention to endometriosis or fibroids or all those things. And it takes forever. And it's absolute bollocks. I mean, it's just
yeah,
not true. It's not designed to be painful. And the other one is that none of us on this planet are born with menstrual shame. We all learn it. Male or female, doesn't matter who you are, we all learn menstrual shame. We all learn that menstruation is something to be ashamed of and something to be shameful. Yeah. And so to me, those two places, those two questions, the cornerstone of the Starfire education, we transmute that fear and that pain into power, into wisdom. And that to me is the core transmutation of the menstrual experience. When we take it from tyranny to champion, we are working on that capacity to make it a fundamentally transformed state so that you can, and once you actually, like we in the process of Starfire, we take that terror of detection, that fear of detection that our culture has created and sustained in us. And we transmute it through what I call a piece of menstrual jewelry, right? So this was mine. And it's something I only ever wore when I bled. And something I would put on as a moment go, I am bleeding. This is my bleeding self. And I'm going to wear this because I am proud of my bleeding self. I wear this mantle of pride and strength because my bleeding self is something I love and I respect and I bring forward. I don't need to hide it. Yeah. And that's such a core, to me, that's such a core important part of our transmutation into the power of really owning that power, that superpower. Yeah.
and it what you mentioned is true with the core questions. I didn't believe I was just told, "Oh, pain's part of the cycle."
Mm,
And yeah, it's a bunch of bollocks.
mm,
It really truly is, because I
yeah.
didn't believe it until I had my first pain-free cycle without
Mm,
medical suppression.
mm,
And I was like, "Oh, whoa." I
mm,
didn't have the anxiety, I didn't have the depression, I didn't have the anxiety. I
mm,
didn't have a lot of other symptoms that I normally had and
mm,
leading up to it. And then even when it started, I was like, oh, I heard people say that, hey, just bleed. And I never
Mm,
had the ability to just bleed without pain. There was always some
yes.
sort of pain
Mm,
associated with it. Not an irritation, not a pressure, but pain, like doubled over
mm,
in pain. I was like, wow, that stuff is true.
mm,
And I thought about it. I'm like, okay, this is let's see if I can do this again. And I did it the
mm,
next month. And now
mm,
it's to the point where if I have pain, I look and see what I did for the last month, through the last
mm,
cycle. Was I
mm,
high stress? Did I eat a lot of
mm,
processed foods? Did I have a lot of alcohol of some form or more
mm,
alcohol than I normally do? Was I not getting what was my sleep habit? Um, and when I look at that, I realize, oh, I didn't sleep as well. Or I had a lot of junk that my body really didn't like. And I made some adjustments and then I'm back to not having pain.
mm,
And I share that with individuals and they don't believe me. They think I'm full of baloney. I'm like, all right, well,
mm,
try it. What's the worst that'll happen? Do you want to go through
mm.
another painful month? Well, no. Okay. Then how about we just put in a few pieces, not a whole bunch of pieces,
Yeah,
just small changes. They come
yeah.
back to me the next month. They're like, all right, yeah, I believe you. I'm like, yeah. And
Mm,
then the whole the menstrual shame. The
mm,
my older son, I talked to my older son about
mm,
cycles. And he
mm,
told me, he's like, Mom, I really don't like listening to this.
mm,
This makes me feel uncomfortable. And I said, I understand. It wasn't a very, I was uncomfortable with it. I'm in my mid
mm,
40s, mid almost
mm,
considered late 40s. I started menstruating at 10 and I was embarrassed in my 40s to walk up to a male cashier and hand over my products that I needed for my period. I was afraid, I was embarrassed to be a bleeder. I was embarrassed to say I menstruate.
mm,
And I'm like, you know what? No, no, not
mm.
anymore. This is my power. And I
Yes.
love that you have an outward sign that you're bleeding. I'm
Mm,
sitting there thinking about this. I'm like, I would like to do that. So
mm,
I love that you have that
mm,
and that whether people understand what it is or not, but it's
mm.
you
Not for
have
anyone.
that exactly,
Yeah.
but it's your symbol that you are bleeding.
Mm,
It's your recognition that
mm,
one, you're a bleeder,
mm.
um, and two, you're not ashamed of it.
Yeah.
And it's
Right.
beautiful. I love that because you are embracing the beautiful human that you are.
Mm. And we all can. We all
Exactly.
there's one of the things I did build in that first decade was a tool called the Temple of the Blood Meditation CD. And it's now on Spotify because I just put it up there. And I've had women across the globe who've sent me messages or little gifts saying just, 4 or 5 times they listened to that CD, that meditation when they were bleeding and they no longer experience pain. Because what do we do in that meditation, that guided visualization? And I was using it, and I mean, I don't bleed anymore, but yeah, it's such a nice thing to listen to. But it's initiation. Yeah, we take ourselves down into our underworld and then deeper again into the level of deep initiation, into the power of that blood state. And what we know is that you change the belief, you change the experience. So when you shift that belief from the core out, that the menstrual experience is power, it is something to embrace, it is so much you can live in and function from the core out. Yeah. But recognizing it's many moons have created this pain, created this belief, this cultural force that we're up against. Yeah. And to change that belief is there's some work to be done in the inner landscape and in your inner self to be done because Because yes, diet makes a fundamental change when we recognize, what garbage in, garbage out. What you put into this beautiful body is what you get out of it. But the more, but it's also here what we put in here, yeah,
Yep.
and that when we transform the mind and we transform the beliefs, we create something. And again, it's why we do the red thread work, because our mothers wrapped us in fear, yeah, to try and to protect us. They wrapped us in the same fear their mothers wrapped them in, their mothers wrapped in. And that whole lineage was just doing what they thought they had to do to keep their daughters safe. Yeah. So when they wrap you up in that fear, it's because they just want you to be safe. Yeah.
Mhm.
Because it's horrible in a patriarchal culture to straight up, it's horrible to be a woman in the patriarchal culture when you've got this vulnerability of this bleeding state. And it's it is a vulnerable time. You are actually really, you're a very open, vulnerable state. Yeah. You need to know how to exercise power and create your own version of safe from the core out, because it's something that, yeah, it will be used against you.
It will, and it does,
Yeah.
and one of the
Yeah.
things that I do, and when I got into this space, one of the things that I was I I felt it deep in my core.
Mm,
1, to get into the cycle space, but 2, to work with those preteens and teens and
mm,
help them understand how beautiful and powerful their bodies are and this cycle is, and to help
mm,
change the narrative. And the more as I've been growing and shifting, that is still I wanted to get into this space, and it was gonna initially working with pregnant women. And then it got into working with those that were trying to conceive. And then it
mm,
got into working with those just to understand their cycle. And now it's down into helping the mothers understand
mm.
that
Yeah.
what they were taught was fear, and that we
Mm,
don't have to fear it. And
mm,
if they're, because I've talked to moms and I've had mothers tell me, I had a horrible cycle, and my biggest fear
mm.
is that my daughters are going to have that kind of cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And or it's I had a horrible cycle and I watched my one daughter have a horrible cycle and my other one didn't. And I didn't know what to do to help her because all we were given was medical
Yeah.
suppression.
Yeah. That's it.
And that's where I
Mm.
call myself the big red period positive megaphone, to share that we don't have to
Mm,
be
mm,
afraid of this, that we can embrace it. It doesn't have to be painful. If it's painful, that is our body communicating with us,
mm.
and to find out why it's painful.
Yeah.
And our body will
Going up.
tell us why.
Yeah. Always.
And
She'll always say.
to, to change that narrative, I
Mm,
know I may be able to see some of my vision come to life before this physical body tires and decides to go to sleep.
mm.
Yet I know that we can change this. I know we can get back to where we initially were as humans and love our bodies as they are, love that
Mm,
bleed, embrace it, and see it as the
mm,
superpower. Really, really,
mm.
truly is.
Well, we think about when I look back at the last 30 years, right, and how far we've come in 30 years. Yeah, what we've transformed. Yeah.
Mhm.
And the more and more, and it just warms my heart every time I see another gorgeous young woman, another journeys that people are taking, and the beauty that's being built and the strength that's being expressed. It's like, oh, go girl. And it's interesting over the years, many have sort of said to me, you should be working with young girls. I'm not good with kids. I swear too much for children, but I'm really good with that. I was always kind of that 20 to 35. That tends to be the humans that arrived in front of me, and and I, But the mothers, the mothers going, I will have this different for my daughter than it was for me. And I think that impetus, that movement for a mother to say, I want this different for my daughter. I need this to be different. And it's no different than all of the layers of patriarchy. Like the women folk who are standing and going, I will not have my daughter meet the same bullshit I have met. I will transform this culture until it's safe enough for my daughter to be alive, and safe in her body and her skin, and expressing themselves as they choose, And when we look at the whole movement of feminism and women's owning their power and different layers, levels of ownership of power, that I always found it really interesting when I studied some of the stuff from the 70s. It's like, our biology is not our destiny kind of pushback. And in the feminist movement, it's like, well, no, it's not. But it's also, it's part of differentiation here. Like we actually, there's a power in owning the separate, the differences. And recognizing, shoving bleeding folk into this linear non-bleeding folk, atypical state, and saying we should all be these things. That is where the pain is. The premenstrual stress and tension is trying to shove yourself into a space that you don't belong in. It's got nothing for you. There's no reflection there. But when you reflect, when you look to the moon, when you look to the earth, when you look to the natural cycles of self, you see yourself reflected. You see the ebbs and the flows. You see the low tides, the high tides. You see how you're part of that. And I guess, the men folk I've met over the years who have owned the fact that they are animal, they are human, they are part of the earth. They're the ones who, fully embrace, what it is to be menstrually aware and conscious. And I think the other part of writing your menstrual cycle, the point of it is that when you map the journey, when you make a map of your experience, you can share your journey. And so by having that information for yourself, then, because we all affect, like if you're in a household, your menstrual experience affects everybody in that household. Because you're all close enough proximity to be affected by it. If that effect is conscious and present and everyone understands and is kind, then we can stay in a really powerful relationship with something that's really quite large. But if you've got silence and shame and hiding things and just trying to cope and shoving it all down, back down again, back down again, back down again, like no one goes anywhere very fast at all. Whereas if you could embrace it and recognize it and share that journey and have it one that has, respect and kindness and trust in it, then, life can be a fucking stunning thing. Life can be a really beautiful thing.
Yes, it can be. You have a digital class
I do.
available, and you have a book that you've mentioned that's coming up.
Yeah, it's coming out soon.
Where can people find you if they want to learn more about you, hear more about what you do, and just really get more of you? Where can we find you?
Thank you very much. So livinggently.com.au is my kind of core. I've had that website now for 30 years. Well, no, 25 years. It's been great. As long as we've had websites. As soon as I could have a website, I had a website. And it's always been living gently. It's always been about that place of just living gently with yourself and each other and with the earth. And all the page, it's got everything there. So here's a link there to the Spotify where Temple of the Blood is, space to sign up for the newsletter so you'll know when the book is out, but direct access right now to Writing a Menstrual Cycle, which is the digital class, which is, there's 4 guided visualizations, a couple of maps, there's a bunch of great education in there, and excited to see that in the world. I think it's really powerful work for an individual woman to work with, but also anyone who's coaching women, anyone who's working with women or menstruating folks who want to, just bring that consciousness in. It's a great toolbox. So I'll be setting up, I haven't got it set up yet. I will be setting up an affiliate process that for those who want it on sale and work with people with it. Because it's, I really hope, see, it's 30 odd years worth of wisdom distilled in something very practical, very effective, very simple to do that deep ownership work that our culture is terrified of, which is all the more reason to do it.
Absolutely.
This is how we just
Absolutely.
let you go.
I'm hearing more and more and more here in the States that the matriarchy is coming back, that the matriarch is coming back. And I'm looking forward to it. I really am. Uh, how it's coming back, I'm not exactly sure. I don't know if it's ready to come back in 2025 and the 2024, but it is
Yeah.
definitely starting to really come
Yeah.
back, and we are really starting to find our places in this world and standing up and saying, no, that's really not how things are supposed to
Yeah.
be done. And out of that 25 years of experience,
Mm.
can you give us a nugget to kind of the biggest nugget out of that 25 years to take with us?
It's either yours or it's not. It's either your body or it's not. Like you can choose to own this beautiful body, these powerful systems, or not. Like there's no have tos, but life with this is your life. Like it's you get to own it from the core out. And to me, that's life worth living. Like it's a very powerful life worth living. But it's your choice.
That is extremely profound and so true. It's, yeah, very, very true. Thank you so much, Catherine, for taking us
Thank
on this
you.
enlightening journey
Mm.
into just being us and embracing us with the cycle. I loved having you on here. This has been a beautiful conversation.
Thank you so much, Hurley, for the opportunity. It's really beautiful opportunity to share. Obviously, something I'm incredibly passionate about, and it's wonderful to have an opportunity to share the life's work. It's been a epic 25 years, and I know that the 25 in front of us will see another fundamental changes. But it's these conversations, these powerful ones. Thank you so much for holding the space open and embracing flow.
Oh, I love having it. It has been a very, very eye-opening and heartwarming journey.
Oh, awesome.
All the links that Catherine has mentioned can be found in the show notes. Thank you, listeners, for spending your time with us today. If you found a nugget of wisdom or a moment of empowerment, my mission is accomplished. Do you know someone who could benefit from this information? Please share Embracing Flow with them. Until next time, my friends, love hard, laugh often, and as always, be vividous. See you soon.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Embracing Flow. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow the show, submit a rating and review, and share it with your friends. Visit my website to receive your free PDF on 4 ways to decrease PMS. The link is in the show notes. Until next time, love hard, laugh often, and as always, be vividous.
Information shared on the Embracing Flow podcast is for educational purposes only. It does not constitute medical advice.